Hi, Prairie Street. Here we are, another week locked down in quarantine. Here we are in another week of recognizing racial injustice in our community and our world. And here we are again, coming together wherever we are, worshiping our Creator. The text that we heard earlier today is from Exodus 19. This story is the end of a long journey, but it's also the beginning of another one. In Exodus 19, we see Moses and the people of God, Israel, saying yes to entering into a covenant with God. And this is the end of a long journey. But it didn't start with Moses. So if we flip our pages in our Bible back all the way to Genesis 19, we see God calling a guy named Abraham and Sarah. And God says, "Go from your home and from your people to the land where I'm showing you, and I will make you a great nation." And today in Exodus 19, we see this great nation that God had promised. So Abraham, where this kind of all got started, had a son named Isaac, and Isaac had a son named Jacob, and Jacob had multiple sons, and one of them was Joseph. And Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sent off into a foreign land where, by the grace of God, he ends up finding a pretty good job. And those brothers who had betrayed him come to Joseph and ask him for help, but they don't even realize it's their brother. And we see the family of Abraham in some big trouble, but because God had taken care of Joseph, Joseph was able to help this family survive a pretty challenging time. And we see the family of Abraham establishing themselves as a people. And then this family finds themselves in trouble again. They are slaves in a foreign land in Egypt. And once again, God chooses to take care of them. So God comes to a guy named Moses in a burning bush and says, "You need to help me get these people out of Egypt, help get them out of slavery." So Moses, he didn't really want to, but finally he says yes. He challenges the Pharaoh and he gets his people out of slavery, and they're leaving, but then they get chased and there are waves, and finally they're safe. Here in Exodus 19, they make it to Sinai. This is the end of a long journey. The drama just kept unfolding, and God was with them the whole way through. And here at the end of this journey, God says, "I brought you to myself." The end of this story for the people of God, Israel, is that God brought them to God's self. The end. But this end is also the beginning of another story. The Bible doesn't end here in Exodus 19. If we look forward, what happens next? We see here in Exodus 19 that God's people enter into a covenant with God. They agree that they'll do certain things in order to be a priestly nation. So God says here in Exodus 19 that the whole earth is mine. Everything belongs to God. God is the God of everything we see. But God chooses this people, Abraham's family, to be a priestly kingdom. God chooses them to be spiritual leaders, to be prophets, to be pastors for the whole world. And God says, if you do these things that I'm asking you to do, you will be my treasured possession. and a whole new journey begins. This priestly kingdom spends the next generation being formed until God comes to them again in an amazing way. One of their own is born, Jesus, God on earth. God comes to earth through this priestly kingdom and saves us all. So the end was only the beginning of something else. I think several of us at Prairie Street can understand what this means, that the end is only the beginning. Some of us have recently experienced some life transitions. Connie just graduated from a long academic journey. Some of you have recently retired and are now trying to decide what to do after working a full-time career. Some are moving away from Elkhart to begin life somewhere else. The Weeby Johnsons are now in Pennsylvania. The end is only the beginning of something new. So I wonder about our congregation here at Prairie Street, if the end is only the beginning of something new, because here at Prairie Street we have seen the end to several things recently. In the last few years, going through a transition, we noticed that our time as a 400-person church has come to an end. We realized that our time of being a congregation in a mostly Mennonite, middle-class, white neighborhood has come to an end. And I think we're beginning to see that a lot of other things will come to an end as well. Maybe things that we haven't even imagined yet. Some of the things that have carried us to where we are now, that have served us so well, will no longer serve us into the future. So I just want to sit here for a second in the end, right here in Exodus 19, the end of a long journey. We look back and we see how faithful God has been to us. Israel looked back and saw how faithful God had been to their ancestors, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph and his brothers, and Moses. And we can do the same thing. Look back and see how God has been so faithful to us, now almost for 150 years at Prairie Street Mennonite Church. And here at the end, I wonder what comes up for you. Sometimes at the end of something really good, we feel sorrow and sadness. We feel like we're losing something really good, and the truth is that could be right. We might be losing something really good. It's hard to let go of something that has been so meaningful for so long. Endings can be really, really hard, right? But sisters and brothers, when we read Exodus 19, look what God can do with an ending. Look what God can do at the end of a journey, right? The end is only the beginning of something new, something holy. The end of one journey can begin something new, and God was there before, and God will continue to be there after, leading us through to what is next. So I invite you, sisters and brothers, to say with me the words that Israel said to God at the bottom of Sinai in Exodus 19. Everything that the Lord has spoken, we will do. we will doing it knowing that God has been faithful to us all the way until now, and that God will continue to be faithful to us moving forward. Amen.